Welcome to the More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Kevin Kelton, and I'm pleased to share the mic with my friends DJ McGuire.
That's right. Someone the Times and Siena University does not call because they insist 3 rural voters are more important than I am.
Rebecca Kushmider.
I am sitting here on tenterhooks watching a school board primary result come in. So if I seem distracted, it is because I actually am in Kensington, Maryland, where it's primary night.
And Greg Matusak.
Your common sense liberal from Cincinnati, Ohio. I have attended 2 senior banquets for my oldest child who's graduating and has been accepted to a college. I will be sending out my GoFundMe page to pay for her college to all the listeners and to everyone on this podcast. So thank you for your support on that.
I've been there. I've done it twice, Greg, and my sympathies go out to you. Not the GoFundMe.
I was going to say, I will put you down on the GoFundMe. That's a commitment. Everyone's heard
I'm down for $5.
Well, it's a start.
Before we get into the news this week, we wanted to throw something open to our listeners. A lot of you have been with us for a while, and maybe you have always dreamed of being on the More Perfect Union podcast. Well, your opportunity may be here. We would like to do an episode where we have a mock jury deliberation of the Trump trial. This would happen very close to the end of final summations or after final summations, but before the actual jury reaches a verdict. We would like to see how regular people would deliberate the facts of this case based on what they've learned from television and from reading news accounts about it. And so if you are interested in that, write to us at mpupodcast@gmail.com. Tell us in a few sentences about yourself. And if we think we can pull this thing together, we've never done anything like this before, we will have several, maybe 12, maybe more, maybe less, of our listeners actually participate in a recording session and see where it lands us in terms of a jury verdict.
I was just about to say, I don't think anyone's ever tried this before, and this could be the basis for a new judicial system for the country. Podcasting justice.
I was going to say a more perfect judicial system.
Oh, okay. I like yours better, but I love it. I think it's much more fair than what's going on in the Supreme Court right now. I could see people like, oh, this is true justice. This is like street justice. And if we do this, I want to be Donald Trump.
So you want to sleep through it?
I want to sleep through it and make like gross noises. Sort of like what I do right now on the podcast. So
cool. So we have that coming. Like I said, the email address is mpupodcast@gmail.com. And by the way, if you just want to send us a note saying that you listen and tell us what you like, or maybe what you'd like more of or will like less of in the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to hear from you. mpupodcast@gmail.com. And with that said, yes, there is a trial going on in New York. Someone named Donald J. Trump is at the defense table. Jurors have been hearing from Michael Cohen. He's still on the stand as we record this. And I'm going to throw to DJ first. What are your takeaways from what you've learned about the case so far this week and where you think it's going and how it might impact the election?
I think Michael Cohen acquitted himself pretty well. Does not appear.
Don't use that word acquit. It makes me nervous.
Comported himself well.
Yeah. I don't think the defense has really helped itself much. I'm not really sure what case the defense is going to present because I'm not really sure what their argument is. It's something between it didn't happen, he was being shaken down, Michael Cohen did it on his own volition, or it's scattershot. So
yeah,
I'm actually thinking there will be a conviction out of this one.
From your lips to the jury's ears.
No, that would be jury tampering, and that's a felony. We're not allowed to do that.
You're not allowed to kiss the ears of the jurors?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, I don't know, they're not supposed to listen to podcasts right now. Yeah, I tend to agree with DJ that it seems like the defense is trying to say that Michael Cohen did this on his own, that he was some kind of rogue agent within the Trump organization. And what I found really amazing today was the lawyers, trying to make it all out as if Michael Cohen is doing everything he's doing right now for money. Like, oh, you have a podcast and you make money off that. You sell merch and you make money off that. The man they are defending wrote a book called How to Get Rich. For them to criticize anyone for wanting to make money strikes me as patently unfair.
All right, I'm going to disagree with y'all. And I know, I'm just feeling really, really froggy today. So I'm going to jump. And I'm going to say, that I honestly think that right now we are all like, oh yeah, this case is in the bag because only the prosecution has really shown their side. But when it comes to the defense, what they're going to do, and this is my belief, is they're going to say, Donald J. Trump listened to his lawyer, and his lawyer, and like we all would, your lawyer comes and says, hey, we can make this problem go away. We've got this. You pay me to do this. This is what I would do. Sign this paper here. Take care of it. We're done. I'm a lawyer. I know what I'm doing. And that's how they're going to walk away with this. And they're only going to need one person because their end of the speech is going to say, if you were in trouble, wouldn't you trust your lawyer to give you good advice? And that's how it's going to be pinned on Cohen. And even though he's a bad lawyer, they're going to say that's enough doubt that maybe Donald Trump isn't the smartest person in the room. And the sleeping and the falling asleep and the crapping his pants, that's all helping him.
Hold up. You go to your lawyer when you think you're going to be arrested or when you think you're going to be sued. You do not go to your lawyer when you think you're going to be embarrassed or you're going to lose votes in an election.
No, you do actually.
No, you don't. I have been a candidate. I have seen campaigns. You don't go to a lawyer. You go to a campaign manager.
The other thing I think we can point to that is not in Donald Trump's favor is that this is a pattern of behavior, and that prior instances of catch and kill operations, David Pecker footed the bill, and this was a change in pattern, and so they had to come up with this whole financial scheme. And he's the Pecker meetings, the notes on invoices make it very clear that Trump was aware that they were trying to hide stories for the sake of his election, and that they were doing it using fraudulent business records. Like Michael Cohen told him he was going to start a shell company. Like, you don't start a shell company when you're on the up and up. At least I don't. Maybe y'all do.
My takeaway of the week, obviously we can hope for a conviction, or we may think that's unlikely. Obviously, none of us knows. But my takeaway in watching the coverage is a couple of things. First of all, I'm glad, DJ, that you used the word attorney. I am so sick of hearing him called a fixer. There's no such thing as a fixer. And network news anchors should know better than to use terminology like that. It's prejudicial, not that they're in a courtroom, but it just smacks of like buying into the Trump line. The fixer. What does that even mean? He's an attorney. He was Trump's attorney. Another thing that I found interesting this week is everybody is talking about this rule of case law, this rule of criminal law. And I'm not going to try to pronounce the Latin, but it means essentially lie about one thing, you can assume they've lied about everything. And what the network people keep hammering that to suggest that the jury doesn't have to believe Michael Cohen because he lied a lot in the past or because he was convicted of perjury. That's not what that legal tenet means. What it means is if in the case you're hearing, you believe the witness lied to you once, then you can disregard everything that they've said. Everybody in the world has lied in the past. Michael Cohen maybe has lied a little bit more publicly, but every witness that gets on the stand has some history of telling a fib. So the idea that Michael Cohen is immediately disqualified, and this is what Fox News would have you believe, is immediately disqualified because of his past missteps, whether they were legal, whether they were public relations, whether he lied to Congress. If he accepts that, acknowledges that, and takes ownership of that on the witness stand, and then the jury believes that other than that, he testified truthfully, they do not have to disregard his testimony. So that's another place where I think the cable networks have done a great disservice to this case and to the viewers who want to understand our legal system.
There was one thing that struck me today in Michael Cohen's testimony. He testified that he did not invoice for actual legal services that he had committed or what's the word, contracted for with Donald Trump. Like he had given legal advice or done something legal for the Trump organization, but didn't get paid for it. He did that out of the goodness of his heart. The only time he was getting paid for stuff is apparently when he was doing these more fixer-like job. No offense, Kevin, for using that term.
I'm offended. I'm offended.
Well, you should call, Kevin, you should call for a mistrial.
A mispodcast.
A mispodcast.
A miscast.
Did they ever establish how Michael Cohen got paid? Was it like per like felonious or per like evil deed, or was it like seriously, was he on the payroll? Did he get a annual
well, first of all,
salary?
he was on the payroll of Trump Organization.
Okay.
And for this particular payout, they took the amount of money that he paid to Stormy Daniels.
Right, I understand
They
that.
doubled it for tax reasons.
Okay.
They added on some other monies that he had laid out in Trump's behalf in the past. And they broke it up into some number of equal payments of $35,000. Trump wrote a check for each one of those payments, and it came out of either the Trump Organization. Yes, it came out of the Trump Organization. That's how he got paid.
No, he was paying out of the Trump Foundation and then out of his own personal accounts, and he was making monthly installment payments of $35,000 over the course of 11
Okay,
or 12 months.
well, Alan Weisselberg was somehow involved in it, so I thought it was the Trump Organization, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was going through the Trump Organization, but because the payments were happening after the election. I don't think Donald Trump could write checks from the Trump Organization because he had handed over control of that. So it was coming out of Trump Family Foundation or something like that, and then his personal account.
Okay. There were some political celebrities in the courtroom this week because Trump's family
not go crazy
so far,
with that word celebrity.
Trump's family has avoided it, other than Eric Trump. By the way, I think we will see Melania in courtroom before the end of the case, but that's just a guess on my part.
I'll put money down that we won't.
Okay.
I'll bet you like a hot fudge sundae or.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you're right, I will double my GoFundMe donation to $10. So,
perfect. Excellent. Yes.
But I'm going to hold you to that hot fudge sundae if I'm right.
There's no way if she comes in, it will literally, she'll wear a jacket that says like, I don't care, I know he's guilty. Or I mean, it will say something horrendous. She will wear some fashion statement that will be literally like, it will be like a picture of Stormy Daniels and a candle. I mean, there is no way.
No, it'll be something like, it said this would be Versace if he hadn't spent all that money on Michael Cohen.
Right.
Well, the people that were there were J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson, Tommy Tuberville, who was there earlier in the week.
Rick Scott was there.
Rick Scott, and I'm forgetting one or two.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Vivek Ramaswamy, that's the one I was searching for in my mind. So all of these surrogates were there because they could say the stuff that the gag order prevents Trump from saying. Do you think that they actually help move any voters, or are they just such a far second to Donald Trump that they're really just there for their own aggrandizement, nothing else?
This is the vice presidential edition. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't for Mike Johnson, I don't think.
Oh, yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Well, he's not going to be
Johnson?
speaker again.
Yeah, but couldn't he go to divinity school or something? Just leave us all out of his next please.
No, I mean it's sad how apparent these people are. J.D. Vance left Ohio, my home state, and flew there, probably on money that I paid somehow, to back him. Just at a pathetic, it's so thirsty that he wants to be vice president that bad, that he's willing to stand in a terrible, dingy courtroom all day, and with these other people who just want to be vice president that badly.
They want their name on that news so much.
Yeah.
But I mean, like if you are a non-MAGA voter, and, you're seeing Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, standing outside this courtroom calling this whole trial a travesty. If Trump gets convicted, is that going to sour you to the whole party? I think it might. If you're, seeing the leadership of one of the two major parties all, bowing and scraping over this guy who's just making shady financial dealings. It's just gross. It's so... Remember that scene in Donnie Brasco where there's a bunch of mobsters sitting around a wood-paneled room and one of them is literally taking a hammer to a parking meter, and that's the level of crime they're committing, trying to break open a parking meter.
That's what
for
this
the coins.
was.
That's what this is starting to feel like. It's not sexy, cool Godfather mob stuff. It is Donnie Brasco hammer to a parking meter mob stuff.
Yep. So we recently discussed some of the security concerns and the physical security of election workers and election sites. The Justice Department announced it's finally taking those threats seriously. Do you think a conviction in the Trump trial will increase the danger at the polls in November, or might actually create violence before then? Or, again, do they live in separate parallel universes?
It all kind of depends. Even if there's a conviction, assuming that he'd be in some sort of appeal process, his name will still be on a ballot. And I don't know that would cause potential violence at the polls. If somehow he is not, if he isn't able to go to conventions, if it seems like he is being forced out of this election, I think that causes more of a problem than just a straight-up conviction.
And speaking of violence, will campus protests spill over to problems on Election Day?
I would actually be surprised. I mean, we've seen the ranking of where actual students' concerns, and we've actually looked at the numbers. And yes, there are of what college students are concerned about, and these protests are relatively small, and we don't know where we're going to be in 6 months. And I know we've talked about it. I know I'm the minority. You guys still think they're going to be college protests in 4 or 5 months. I just don't see it. Or maybe I'm wrong. But, I think I'm more concerned about, people with AK-47s or AR-15s, excuse me, who are patrolling to make sure, that's where I'm more concerned about.
I'm concerned about both. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think the trial itself or the conviction will make an impact one way or the other on Election Day security. Yes, I'm using the inverted commas when I say that. Because, the wackos are going to wacko, and they're going to be dangerous, and the fact that the Department of Justice is looking at it is a good thing, and that they're taking it seriously. I don't think the protests are going to have much of an impact because, and I'm going to take this from a different angle here, I think the Israeli operation in Gaza is looking more and more ineffective. Hamas is creeping its way back into the north of Gaza, which was supposedly cleared of all Hamas people. And as more of this goes on, and this becomes essentially 2,000 bomb whack-a-mole instead of an actual attempt to eliminate Hamas from Gaza in a systematic manner, Biden is going to have a lot more leeway to say Israel's self-sabotaging, and I cannot sit here and help Israel self-sabotage. He will have more room to criticize the Israeli government's actions because there are already people inside Israel who are criticizing the Israeli government actions, including in the IDF. So the protesters, they're going to have their hardcore of Biden haters. Those are always going to be there, but the political power that they had in terms of angry Democrats really upset over Gaza not voting for Joe Biden. I don't think that's going to be happening in the fall because I think Biden is going to have to be far more critical of Israel in September and October than he is now, because by then it'll become more and more obvious that what Israel is doing is not working. And while that will be bad for Israel, let alone Gaza, it will be good for Biden because it means that those anti-war Democrats, for lack of a better term, will feel more comfortable voting for him because he will feel more comfortable criticizing Israel.
Okay. And speaking of protest, how about protest votes? Nikki Haley is running as we speak in the Maryland primary against one Donald J. Trump. And I'm going to throw to Rebecca Kushmiter, who is our reporter on the field.
Reporter on the field, on the ground, on the iPad. As I am looking at results, we have 479 precincts reporting of 1957. And at the moment, Nikki Haley has 21.48% of the primary vote against Donald J. Trump. Now, at the moment, Biden only has 88% of the Democratic vote. We've got an 8.29% going to uncommitted. But that feels performative. It doesn't feel like people who, and I have nothing to base this on, but it doesn't feel like these are people who are going to peel off from Biden in the general. They're just trying to make a point right now. And I think, as DJ said, the situation is in so much flux that we can't really predict how people are going to feel about it 6 months down the road.
It also says something in a Democrat. Obviously Maryland is a very Democratic state, but we're looking at a primary where there are twice as many Democrats voting as there are Republicans. And Nikki Haley still has more votes. Almost exactly,
actually. That's some good math in there, Deej.
Thank you. And Nikki Haley still has more votes than uncommitted Democrats. Now, if that's the case in a state like Maryland, which is fall over Democratic, then in some of the swing states, that means in some of these swing states, Donald Trump will be bleeding far many more Republicans than Joe Biden is bleeding Democrats, even if I am wrong about what I said 10 minutes ago, and I'm not wrong. So, even at its worst, this is looking very good. This is a very good sign for Biden in November. Much better sign than that horrible New York Times Siena poll that said that the rural vote would be twice what it actually is on Election Day. I'm still mad about that.
It's also worth noting that the uncommitted vote is purposeful. It's a message being sent using a very specific tool with which to send it. The people voting for Nikki Haley are just voting for a candidate who's not in the race. Like, uncommitted is basically, it's a vote for the people of Gaza, and a plea for mercy on the people of Gaza, whereas voting for Nikki Haley is just a big middle finger to Donald J. Trump.
I'd like to think, and I've spoken to some people who have voted for Nikki Haley, even past, and they've all said they actually believe that this will send a message that they hope that Donald Trump won't be, which is ridiculous, the actual candidate for the GOP, which that's not going to happen at this point. And two, they still hope that this will send a message that maybe he will be a more middle of the road representative, a candidate, and he will temper some of this, and this will send a message, which also will not happen.
Well, and policy-wise, Nikki Haley is no more moderate than Donald Trump is. She's just as conservative as the most conservative. She's not like a middle-of-the-road normal person.
Well, hey, hold it. Nikki Haley is a hard-right conservative from 2014. That's not considered hard-right conservative anymore. If you support NATO, if you're not an isolationist, and if you're not a protectionist, apparently you're not a conservative in 2024. So Nikki Haley and Donald Trump do have some very serious policy disagreements. Okay, neither of them would be comfortable in the Democratic Party, obviously, but people who are voting for Nikki Haley have their reasons, and yes, some of them are policy reasons. Some of them is a friend of mine who just wanted a chance to vote against Donald Trump. He's going to do it again in November, but he wanted to do it in March just to feel good about it, just to see Donald Trump on the ballot and to pick somebody else. I get that. I'm cool with that. There's no guarantee that these voters are going to come back to Donald Trump any more than there's no guarantee that they're all going to go to Joe Biden. In fact, I'm pretty sure that neither of those are going to happen. But they are in play. They are votes that Biden can get. They are votes that the Democrats can get if they put up the right candidates and if they put up the right issues. And maybe we'll talk about that later.
So we've been talking about percentages as they pertain to primaries, but there's also polling data. I'll tell you one thing about getting to the ultimately to the November election and beyond it, win for Joe Biden or win for Donald Trump, what will be wonderful is that not having to think in terms of percentages every time something's on the news. But we do still have to think about percentages in terms of polling. DJ, this has been a craw in your claw. I don't know what that means. This has been bothering you for weeks and months now. The way polling institutions are still polling the American electorate. So I'm going to throw to you and just give you a chance to vent one more time.
Okay. So yes, the New York Times Siena poll has long been a stick in my craw. I believe that's the actual phrase.
It probably is.
And it may not be.
What's a craw?
I don't know.
What even is a craw?
I have no idea what a craw is.
A craw is something a bird uses to help digest food.
Really?
Yeah,
Right.
if I'm correct.
But in February, when they put out the poll that said Trump is up 5 points nationally, and everyone ran around like chickens with their heads on fire, chickens with their heads cut off. See, I get my metaphors confused too. I took a look at the sampling data.
You could have a chicken with its head on fire.
It is possible, yes, indeed. I looked at the sample data, and I found that they were showing the rural vote to be 35% of their polling sample. In 2020, the national rural vote was 17%. In 2022, which was a slightly better year for Republicans, it was 19%. So when this poll came out saying Donald Trump leads in 5 out of 6 swing states, I said, okay, let's take a look at their samples. And when you know it, each and every single state has a higher rural sample than you saw in the 2022 exit poll. Had they used the 2022 exit poll weighting for the types of neighborhoods, Joe Biden would have been ahead by 6 points in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. He'd be only down 4 in Arizona. He'd be only down 5 in Georgia. So I'm not saying that's how we should actually look at the race with my weird analogous math. No. My point is, this poll sucks. And this poll sucks bigger and worse than other polls that have sucked, not only because it got this so badly wrong, but because it's the New York Times and everybody pays attention to it. So everyone is going to react on bad data because the New York Times can't figure out how to keep the farmers and the hayseed folks out of their polling.
I have two quick points. First is I heard a polling analysis, I think it was after 2020, and it was talking about the idea of modeling, where polling is no longer about trying to create an accurate snapshot in time, but about trying to beat the odds of being wrong. And it's become about it is more likely that so-and-so will win than so-and-so will win, but it's not impossible for so-and-so to win. So that the pollsters are never wrong. And I think that's part of Nate Silver's form of modeling, where he's not trying to eliminate possibilities. He's just trying to quantify them all. And the other thing to remember is that whatever polling we're looking at is far less precise and far less accurate than whatever internal polling the campaigns have. And I remember a quote after 2016 where somebody commented that Hillary's internal polling had been showing her numbers in free fall, and they said nobody was less surprised that Hillary Clinton lost than Hillary Clinton. So Donald Trump is not, and Joe Biden are not making their decisions based on the New York Times Siena poll. That's just us running around like chickens with our tractors cut off, or whatever metaphor Greg was butchering earlier. And we can stand around and be angry about it, but the campaigns are seeing a different, possibly more real reality and making their decisions off that.
Let's move on to foreign affairs, which we haven't really touched on a whole lot in the last several podcasts. Ukraine, the war continues. There have been some developments there, fighting to protect Kharkiv. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did.
And obviously, Israel seems to have enough troops perched on Rafah that they could go in and begin their offensive there if they so choose to. With that in mind, DJ, you are our resident foreign affairs expert. Why can't the Democrats just call their opponents un-American for not supporting Ukraine and parroting the Moscow line?
Right. This was actually the question that I threw out, because while I threw this out because I know far less about how Democratic campaigns operate than the three of you, because I'm far less experienced with the Democratic Party than all of you are. If I were a Republican still, and the Republicans were trying to get funding for Ukraine and the Democrats were trying to stop it and parroting Moscow's lines, I know exactly what the Republican Party would do. They would say, those people are un-American. You cannot be a patriot and vote for them at the same time. You are either one or the other. You know, the little bumper stickers, they're Americans and they're liberals back from the 1980s and 90s. They would be all over the place. Okay. And in fact, they're still doing that kind of thing over there, even as they are parroting a foreign tyrant's line. I'm just wondering, what is it about the Democratic Party and the Democratic Party coalition that they can't find, if not the president himself, then at least some senators, some congressmen to stand up and say, the Republican Party is no longer acceptable in American society. You can no longer be a patriot and vote Republican. That should be part of the campaign. It would be part of the campaign if I were running it. It's not part of the campaign. And as you are all much more experienced with the Democratic Party than I am, I would like to hear from you on why that isn't happening.
Because Democrats are very accepting on the macro, but very punitive on the micro. So if somebody is parroting Russian talking points, we'll give them a lot of leeway to do that because we believe in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. If they actually were, found to be a Russian spy, we would most certainly send them to jail. Whereas Republicans are the opposite. They're very judgmental on the macro, but forgiving on the micro. Like, thou shalt not commit adultery. God said not to. But if you're Donald Trump, it's probably okay. We can find a reason to forgive that. So we will never call anyone not a patriot unless they have committed some sort of act that is demonstrably unpatriotic.
Okay. Well, Greg hasn't spoken on this subject yet, but I'm going to disagree with him.
You're saving him so much time and effort.
Damn.
All I'm doing is motioning to the microphone and going, and Kevin's just helping me out here. He's just saving me a lot of time and effort. So
I was just joking. Do you have anything to throw in?
Actually, what's really funny is I was literally just about to say acceptance. That's what Democrats do. We accept. And as much as the GOP will say like, we are just, Democrats are so judgmental and it's so tough being a white male in today's society. That's what's keeping us from doing that exact same thing. Like, you're not part of America. That's like the liberals' big thing is, hey, everyone's part of this big crazy experiment here.
Well, my observation on this is I actually think Democrats are doing it. I just think that they don't ring bells as loudly as Republicans do. Every time I see a congressman or senator address this issue, they do point out that it's not American. It's not the policies of Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, and certainly not John Kennedy. Why it's not resonating, that's a different discussion. But I do think that they're making that case. It just hasn't broken through.
Is what you're saying, Kevin, we need more cowbell on this issue?
We need more cowbell. Thank you very much.
More cowbell.
Never get more cowbell.
Episode title, more cowbell.
And for our last topic, I'm actually going to throw to you, Rebecca. You observed something when you were going through Twitter this week that we thought might make for an interesting topic. Why don't you take this one?
Oh, yes. Andy Biggs of Arizona tweeted out last night that Americans commit 3 felonies a day.
He said that?
Yeah. And it's it's 9:51. I've committed no felonies today. I didn't commit any yesterday. I'm going to have to commit 9 felonies tomorrow just to catch up. I'm so far behind for this week and possibly also my whole life. And I guess there's an economic principle that businesses that can accidentally commit felonies by falling afoul of regulations. It's a libertarian book saying, that we need fewer regulations because they're causing felonies. I don't know. But my question for all of you is, if you had to, commit a baker's dozen felonies this week, how would you reach that quota? How would you make those kind of numbers? What felonies would you commit, Greg Matuzak?
I saw that on the rundown, and I was thinking so I got it confused. I thought sins, I would probably eat a lot, and that would be my gluttony right there. But that's not really a sin. There's. And as far as felonies, I'm actually the guy who everyone honks at because I drive the speed limit. So everyone hates it, and I don't do it.
That's a felony in Texas, let me tell you something.
I know, but I don't do it in the left lane. I do it in the middle lane so people can pass me safely, even. I'm very careful about that. And I use my turn signal, so it wouldn't be a driving offense. I've been accused of breaking the laws of man because I like groups like the Bee Gees, but gosh, they're really good, and I can defend it to So I would be really, really hard pressed. I'll have to think about. I'll have to call some of my ex-girlfriends who have terrible things to say about me. I don't know. Yeah.
What about you, Deej? What felonies would you commit to get yourself to a 3 a day?
Well, I'm in a polyamorous marriage, so adultery, wherever adultery is a felony or misdemeanor, that practically by definition is something that happens.
Is it a felony in Virginia still?
It's a misdemeanor in Virginia. It's a felony in a couple of other states.
Well, if you do it in commission of election interference,
right?
Okay, but I'm not planning on doing that.
I'm trying to help.
There are times where I have accelerated on an interstate where my speeding could be in the reckless category. It's no more than 5 or 10 seconds, but that might be enough. I don't know. I don't know. I really can't think of anything else at the moment.
What about you, Kevin? What would you do to commit?
Well, first of all, I would have to cut down on my felonies to get to 3 a day.
Thank goodness somebody is overachieving in this group.
Thank goodness. You might have to do something for me.
No slacking.
Hold up. He's a resident of Texas. That's illegal in 15 states already.
There you go. There you go. And a couple of things I want to say on that is, first of all, unfortunately, by conflating committing felonies and DJ's marriage with the Donald Trump trial, Rebecca, you've put the image in my head of DJ in red satin PJs.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't think I'm ever going to get that out of my head.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. But I've been thinking about what felonies I would need to commit to get up there. And I'm going to have to go to the zoo and steal all the penguins and possibly take them across state lines.
Oh.
If necessary, I will carry a weapon to the zoo so that it's an armed robbery when I'm stealing the penguins. I'm not sure what consists of a weapon when you're in a penguin enclosure, maybe like frozen fish or something. But I'm going to have to start stealing zoo animals, but I don't want scary zoo animals. I'm going to stick with like penguins or maybe those little capuchin monkeys that you could like wear on your shoulders.
Are you serious? Have you not seen the penguins in Madagascar? Kowalski's already got a plan that you will not survive. Rico is vomiting weapons as we speak.
And why do you think I chose penguins here, DJ? I'm an operative. I'm not just a pretty face. Maybe I'm in league with the penguins.
With that, we want to thank everybody for listening. If you enjoy what we do here, please follow us on Instagram at MPU Fan Club. And don't forget to share our link on your Facebook timeline and your Instagram timeline so your friends can discover us as well. And also, we have a new Substack blog page called MPU Podcast, where we occasionally drop essays. I'm working on a new one for this week. Hopefully, I'll get it out before our next show. And you can see us discuss issues and sometimes debate with each other in the Substack between shows. And as we head into our goodbye theme music, we want to thank Alan Keeney for our theme song. And I'm going to throw this open to Greg, Rebecca, DJ. What kind of nachos will you be eating when Michael Cohen takes the stand again on cross-examination tomorrow?
Probably, I was going to put some sort of oil on them because that's what fixers.